Okay, so 5:30, we'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is being held fully remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. This meeting will now be recorded and broadcast at a later time through WHCA TV and, I believe, YouTube. If everyone could join me for a moment for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In light of also the activities within our world and our country, if you could join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. If we could do a quick roll call vote, so that way there, or roll call, I should say, so we have everybody announced. And if we could start, Mr. Galvin.
John Galvin.
Mr. Cadero.
Here, Dave Cadero.
Beth.
Beth Stafford.
Mr. Tuffy.
Here.
Mr. Scriven.
Here.
Crystal
Regan.
Carrie Sandler.
Carrie Sandler.
Mr. Curran.
Bob Curran.
Dan Cullity.
Here, Dan.
Don Essen.
Here.
Rich Pulkkinen. Hopefully I didn't butcher it.
Yeah, that's good. Rich Falcon's here.
Ernie Sandland.
Ernie Sandlin here.
Okay. And that is all of us. Jeff, who's with you? Is that George?
Yes. Jeff and George, yeah.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Approval of October 19th, 2020 meeting minutes. I would entertain either a motion or any changes anyone would like made.
I'll make that motion, John Galvin.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Roll call vote. Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Scriven?
Yes.
Beth Stafford?
Abstain. I was absent.
Mr. Cadero?
Yes.
Crystal Regan?
Yes.
Carrie Sandler?
Yeah.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Cullity?
Yeah.
Mr. Sandlin?
Yes.
Rich Pulkkinen?
Yep.
Don Essen?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes, so unanimous.
No, abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unanimous with one abstention. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
At this point, Jeff, could you and George take over and go over the MSBA meeting from last month?
Sure.
And also what the enrollment forecasts are, et cetera?
Sure. So on December 9th, a few of us met, Ernie, George, myself, John Tuffy, Fred was on the call, met with members of the MSBA and their enrollment projections. I think Michelle sent out to you in your packet what the projections we're going to be looking at for our 5 through 12 or 5 through 8 middle school in Whitman. We had set them enrollment numbers based upon projections we had and what we have looked at as far as the past enrollments in a 5 through 8 building. We know our enrollment has been diminishing, but when MSBA presented their numbers to us, to be quite blunt, our mouths were hanging open because MSBA is projecting us by 2030 to have approximately 600 middle school kids 5 through 8. So we went back and forth with MSBA, and their data is based on fertility rates, based upon girls women in Whitman at this point, and a bunch of information that, you know, they presented to us. Again, it's in your packet. But the bottom line is that they haven't really looked at the development in Whitman, and they're giving us an opportunity to discuss the development in Whitman. We had projected a building 5 through 9 or 5 through 8 as being close to 900. They are projecting a building that they'd like to build for 600 total. That's something I think that this committee needs to discuss. We ended up, George, myself, and Ernie met with Bob Curran the other day. He's preparing a document for us to support the amount of building that has been in Whitman, or that will be projected in Whitman, since 2018 through 2022. And Bob can elaborate on that a little bit if he so chooses to. But we are feeling, at least George and myself and Ernie are very concerned about building a middle school for 600 students in Whitman to be sustainable after, you know, the year 2030. So George actually contacted I'm sorry, somebody's coming in the waiting room. I'm trying to grab them. It's Ernie. We're looking at hiring out a private company sponsored by NESDEC to actually do our own enrollment projection. The problem that we have right now is a time frame. We met on December 9th. MSBA got back to me on December 19th with the list of questions they'd like me to answer. And these are the 4 questions. The number of housing units from the last 2 years, the projected number of housing units into the next 2 years, the average number of students per unit, and then we had a decline of K-5 students in 2014, 2015 in Whitman. Those are the questions they'd like to have me answer a week from tomorrow to them. So up to this committee, my concern is that Whitman Middle has never been under 600, really, 6 through 12, guessing, and I'm seeing Beth shake her head a little bit, guessing in 2030, we'll have a building of 5 through 8, and there will be at minimum, you know, 700, 800 kids. So we're going to try to fight this or present our own evidence. And again, our conversation with Bob Curran, I think, will give us quite a bit of validity based on the number of housing units that are going up, both single family and townhouses. And what we're working with Bob on is the amount of kids that might be in a townhouse. I don't think MSBA or the state is looking at townhouses as holding kids. But we all know, or us at the school district know, that each townhouse can probably have, if it's a 2-bedroom, might have 2 or 3 kids in that. That's a lot, but that is happening in the town of Whitman. So that was the basis of our December 9th meeting, and we have some concerns that we wanted to share with this committee.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that portion, the meeting that occurred with DESE or MSBA rather, in the enrollment projections?
Bob, do you think you can elaborate a little bit on what you're seeing out on the ground as far as building permits and what you're seeing?
Absolutely. I have prepared the list. I'll have it done by the end of the week. But right now, between what's gone on the last year and a half and over the next year and a half, we will have well over 200 units, whether they're condos or single family homes. There's a lot of condos slated or under construction right now. But if we go backwards about 4 to 5 years, I've got a list together of probably another 40, not to mention what Steve Egan has just finished building over off of Hogue Memorial. That's another 35 units. We've got several single families here and there around the town. So I think it's well over 275 units between 3 or 4 years ago and what's going to happen by a year and a half from now. I think we can justify that there's certainly the school population is not going down.
If I can add also, I think we need to make sure somehow we convince them that the transient nature of Whitman, and when I say that, I've always said that Whitman has something for everybody on every walk of life. Whether you're moving from the city to get an apartment to then eventually get a house, we have those, we can serve your needs. Whether you're downsizing due to either, the outgrowth of your house or an economic downturn, we'll see it. During the economic recession of 2009, actually, I think Whitman schools saw an increase in their student population because of what was happening in Hanson with people foreclosing in their house wanting to stay in the school department. So we're trying to work with NESDEC, we're trying to do it on our own to say that a 600-person middle school for grades 1 to 8 would be very difficult, I believe, because you're building a 6 to 8 middle school. The largest middle school we've had was 621 students, and I believe the smallest we ever had only dipped into the 570s. So obviously this year's a little different because there's so many students, earning their keep another way. But I do believe that the transient nature and all the building, we're trying to convince them, hey, get us to 700 and we'll do it. But you would hate to build a school, us be correct, and move on from there. NESDEC is the New England School Development Educational Collaborative, and it's something that, it's a group that's out there, but that's one of the groups that MSBA does not use in their figures. It's also one of the groups that Ernie has learned that has the ability that they will listen to those results because they believe in the validity of what NESDEC has to say. So hopefully we get the time frame done, hopefully we get a quick turnaround, and we're able to at least get some input to raise the number a little bit for grades 5 through 8. Ernie, do you have anything to add, Ernie?
No.
I'm sorry, Beth, did you have a question?
Well, no, I want to make a comment. Years ago, when they were building the shoe factory down in East Whitman, there was a lot of comments, that the kids wouldn't move in there. If anybody's behind a bus during a school day, you can, right now you can't because of COVID, but you could watch all the kids and, people were denying that. To go by 600, are you kidding me? That is so way off. I'm just flabbergasted that they even suggested that. Because even if there's no increase in population, just going by what we have now, that school would not be big enough. That's totally ridiculous for us to even spend the money on and to convince the townspeople to do so.
I'm wondering if it's worthwhile to get the census reports from William Way, because I know there's plenty of kids that are over there, and those are townhouses.
And there's the new behind my son off of Temple Street. There's the brand new condominiums, 4 units to each one. One is already filled. The second one is being built, and there's at least, I think there's going to be 4, at least 3, and those are well over 2 bedroom. So. And I know the ones who have moved in have children.
There'll be 27 units there, Beth.
27, yeah.
So one of the things that Bob is preparing for us is going back now to take a look to 2016-17 to say what development has been done. And we're also working with our transportation department to see, last year it's much easier to look because of COVID, but to see how many children do live in 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, what kind of stops are the bus routes making at the condominiums, because that'll be very helpful when sort of the formula says 2-bedroom condominiums do not bring children into the school district. So that's some of the stuff that we're trying to find the answers and get the answers to also.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Jeff, would you like to go over what our next steps are?
Yeah, so wrapping this up, I'm going to get the information from Mr. Curran. I'll be drafting a letter, hopefully with a confirmation from NESDEC with our company that we're going to potentially hire to do the enrollment study for us. And I'll enclose their information, or that we've contracted with somebody, in my information back to MSBA. Our next deliverable really is February 26th. That's the local vote authorization. And then we go into feasibility and sign an agreement with MSBA. They are not gonna move on that until we square away the enrollment piece, because we're at odds and we're not gonna, it's gonna be a give and take over the next month. So we'll keep this committee abreast if we need to meet with them, of where we are, if they're gonna stand firm, if we're gonna stand firm, and I will ask this committee, what say you, if they're not coming off the 600 number. Actually, I think, Ernie, if I'm speaking correctly, their enrollment projection was really around 585 or 590, and she said she could squeeze another 10 kids into the projections. So we left it at that, and that's where we stand.
And I'll leave this up to the committee's pleasure, but Monday, February 8th, if anybody would feel that it might be pertinent to schedule a meeting, at least to have it scheduled, in case we need to meet to be prepared for the 26th. Do you think we would have a lot more pertinent information at that point, Jeff?
Good. I'll have Bob Curran's numbers no matter what, and we should have an idea back from MSBA as to where they are. That should be a good day for a meeting, correct?
Okay. So does that work for everybody? The 8th, Monday, 5:30. Hopefully it's keep it quick and focus, so to speak. All right. So Lori, if you could schedule that for us for Monday, the 8th of February.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that we need to cover, Jeff? You can think of?
Good. We're good.
We good?
Good, yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I just have one question, Fred.
Okay.
Where did MSBA come up with this number? How did they do their calculations? I mean, that would be interesting to know if we're going to try.
They do it it's based upon birth rate in the area, average birth rate in other areas. It's a whole formula that they explained as to how they come up with these numbers. And once they come up with it, then they tweak it a little bit. Am I correct in that methodology, Jeff?
Absolutely, and it's in the packet, just the graphs that they came up with. And I can't explain their methodology, but it is a formula based on census. It looks at how many women there are, how many girls there are in town, what the birth rate is projected to be in this town, in the surrounding towns, and they look back in history.
Yeah, if I can read from it, it says, the baseline projection is created by taking your current enrollment and calculating the grade-to-grade survival ratios. The incoming kindergarten classes are extrapolated through 12th grade and from birth data by DPH. And then what they do is they look at the number of housing permits issued in the district. And I mean, yes, there are a lot of houses that have been built and are being built, but we have the unique situation where we have a lot of apartments or condominiums and that really don't get factored into a lot of what they do. So that is our challenge, is that we need to sort of show that there are actual students living in the places that are either rented or bought as condominiums as best that's the results that we've sort of figured out, that we've extrapolated, is that we need to get that data in their hands.
Does that answer the question, Don? And then I think after they're all done with that, they might pull it out of a hat. I don't know.
Well, I think it gives me an idea of how they compiled their number. I don't know if I answered it, but I think I can see where it's derived from.
Yeah, and while we did challenge them, strenuously, and that's why I think we're still going back and forth a little bit as well.
Fred, could I just add to that?
Oh, sure.
Don, since what in the past, MSBA used to sub the enrollment out to architects and project managers. What's happened with the budget because they're tight on money, they've taken that task over. And since they've taken that task over, any of the architects or project managers that I've spoken with about this, they've said the same thing. The MSBA is looking at this strictly from a budget process. They have a formula that they're using, and they're going to stick with it unless we prove them wrong. And that's what Jeff and George is doing right now, spending that time to identify, with Bob Curran, identify some of the numbers that they're really not looking at. And so hopefully we can turn them around, but they all say the same thing. And I think MSBA will say the same thing to us. They will guarantee us a square footage price per student. If you want to build something beyond that, then it's not whatever the reimbursement is. It's 100% on the town of Whitman. So that's basically, it's hardcore, but it's a fact on what they want to do. They want to keep that budget in a certain area, and we have to prove them wrong. Until they do that, they won't budge off that 589 or 591 student population that they've kind of queued into the Whitman Middle School.
Okay, that enlightens a little bit. So if we, and I'll just ask one more question. So if we push the numbers to where they probably should be compared to where they want the numbers for their budget, does that put us in jeopardy of kicking us out of the queue of the middle school?
No, I believe it just means that we're not reimbursed for that portion. Very similar to when we built the high school, the portion that central office wasn't part of the reimbursable part of the project. We just end up having to foot the bill 100% on our own.
Okay.
I think personally, there is some wiggle room here. That Zoom meeting we had with the MSBA, I looked at it as they had their minds made up. They had a Zoom meeting before they talked to Jeff, George, and I, and John Tuffy, and their numbers are their numbers, and our numbers now have to dispel their numbers. And once we convince them, we're going to move that population. I really do with Bob Curran's permits and all the expansion going on in Whitman. I feel as though we're going to move that number up. How many we're going to move it up by, I don't know, but we're definitely not going to be in the lower range that they had predicted. Again, it's all driven by budget with the MSBA. They are going to control whether it's 591 to 592 or 650 or 700 students that they're going to give us. It's all driven by the budget. And it's going to be a fight because we have to prove to them what we feel as though our numbers are at the town of Whitman versus what they're thinking, and it's all numbers to them. With us, it's going to be a middle school that we want to make sure that we build for the future, not for their current budget dilemma.
If I could just tag on to that real briefly, I don't think that they were amicable to just adding on numbers, but they were amicable to at least hearing our case.
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions? Dan?
Dan has one. We were talking about these enrollment numbers, and I heard two different numbers, 528 and 628. Would it be feasible that, seeing how Hanson does 528 now in their middle school, that we would just project ourselves down to pulling our fifth grade into the middle school, or is that something?
Exactly what we're doing. Exactly what we're talking about. So
I just want to be
yeah, it makes sense to align the two, together, so to speak. Jeff, did you have anything else?
No, Fred, we're all good on this end.
Okay. And did anyone else have any other questions? comments, concerns? I would entertain a motion to adjourn if anyone's all set.
Motion to adjourn by Dan.
Second.
I have a second. Roll call vote. Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Scriven?
Yes.
Beth Stafford?
Yes.
Dave Cordero?
Yes.
Crystal Regan?
Yes.
Terry Sandler?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Dan Cullity? Is that a yes, Dan?
Yes.
Rich Pullican?
Yes. Yes.
And Don Essen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We will see you all in February, or some of you sooner. Have a great evening. Stay warm.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.